Very elaborate cobweb. Good morning, Ireland. It is Friday, July the 5th. That makes this day 104. So yesterday, Independence Day, 4th of July, did not transpire for me the way it was supposed to. So there was supposed to be a big congregation of hikers up on top of Bear Mountain from which we were supposed to be able to see New York City and watch various fireworks along the Hudson River. So when I got to the top of the mountain, there were no hikers there. So one or two showed up after I got there, and I could see from there and from from the bloody hell, from the fire tower on top, that you didn't really have a view of New York City. So I had text contact with a couple of fellow hikers that had passed through there and gone down to Bear Mountain recreation area to see what options they had. And they basically said, you know, we'd all been given duff advice. There is no view from up there. There's no camping sites up there. And so I concluded that I'd go down to the recreation area where there's a big inn. It's called the Bear Mountain Inn. It's a beautiful inn, but it was booked out. So we didn't want to go any further because we were pretty exhausted. So we met up with another hiker who'd been hanging around that area for like 3 days, waiting for some friends. And he told us that what he's been doing is waiting till night falls. Sorry, I'm going to stand still. And then finding a kind of a semi-hidden spot in the grounds in this big huge recreation area, which is by the side of a lake with big, you know, playing grounds, picnic areas, playing fields, big ice rink, stuff like that. And he basically finds a spot to stealth camp. And he said the security, basically, as far as he was concerned, were turning a blind eye to it. So we kind of looked around at each other and went, okay, let's do that. So we spent the evening in the bar of the Bear Mountain Inn. Had a few drinks, had a good chat, waited till well after nightfall. We had stashed our packs down in a sort of a picnic area. And we went down there and found a couple of places in actually in a playground area, kids playground. And we basically spent the night there. So it was a bit of a joke. Slept surprisingly well once the security runs had finished, because the guys go around with the flashing lights and strobe lights and whatever. So we were a bit concerned about that. But once that had finished and the refuse collection had finished, it kind of quietened down and we got some sleep. But I had already decided first light, which was just before 5 this morning, I was getting up, packed and getting the hell out of there because I just didn't feel comfortable about where we were camping. So I felt like a bit of a vagabond, a bit of a homeless kind of person last night. But I suppose it's part of the experience. Okay, so today I'm making my way. I think it's about a 21-mile day, and there's a proper organized campsite at a lake. I think it's called something like Tacoma. Can't remember. I'll put it on the screen when I'm editing this. And it's got proper facilities there, which would be great. So that's that. What else? A couple of questions. Bernie asked, do bears not eat the food that the trail angels leave behind? Well, if they found it, they would. But just thinking over the last couple of weeks, there have been at least 4 trail magic areas where there was food. There was others where you had just, you know, water caches and whatever. So with those 4 foodie ones, for 3 of them, it was actually roadside. So it was people, you know, giving us stuff from the back of their car. They might have had a couple of deck chairs set up and some, you know, cooler boxes and stuff with various snacks and drinks and, you know, useful items. So that's that. The other one, which was in the hills, but it was quite close to a road crossing, was a cooler box, which, okay, yes, you could lock it, but a bear would make shit of that basically if it found it. But it was only ever going to be there for a few hours. Hang on a second. And then the trail angel will come back later on and take it away and clear away any litter. So they have to do it that way. They don't leave it there. I don't think they ever really leave it there overnight that I could see. So yeah, I think the bears, again, this is just me guessing, I would imagine that they have their sort of circuits that they make, or their routine routes that they follow around the shelters, that they, you know, they don't go off in random directions and stumble across trail magic. But yeah, certainly if they do find it, they absolutely will eat it. And I think there was one, actually probably, yeah, I remember a guy saying there was a trail magic back at the Bland area. That's like 800 miles ago or something. And when I passed through, there was great trail magic, a couple of cooler boxes with snacks and drinks and beers and all kinds of stuff. So myself and a group of others just sat and enjoyed that. I met a guy a while up the trail who had come through there the day after, and he said that the stuff was all over the place. So I guess a bear or two had come through there and had a little one bear party with that stuff. So they left that there for too long. But overall, yes, to answer your question, if they find it, they will eat it. So that's that. Another couple of questions stroke comments from David Adams. Thanks for paying attention, Dave. It's great to hear from you. It's great to hear from everybody, by the way. Actually, before I answer his questions, if anybody sees this and has asked the question that I don't appear to have answered yet, or haven't answered it sufficiently, please ask again. I hardly ever get coverage on my phone, so it's difficult for me to sort of troll back and look to see if there are any questions that I haven't answered. So by all means, if there's something I haven't answered sufficiently or at all, please ask again. So David, the two things. One, he was concerned about my feet, having finished in Pennsylvania. You're right to be concerned about my feet. Everybody's the same. Pennsylvania just destroyed the soles of our feet. Sorry, gnats. Really vicious on the feet. In fact, my shoes, so what have I got? So I have been getting a little over 500 miles from each pair. This pair, I mean, look, these are destroyed. This is just wrecked from rocks, and I think the whole sole structure is just mashed up, so there's no real support there. So the next chance I get, I'll be changing these ones. But the soles of my feet, not only do they feel bruised, but they actually feel injured. At night, when you're sort of relaxing and your feet are trying to heal themselves, you're getting this stinging pain running through the tendons in your feet, and it's very, very painful. So Pennsylvania, I don't know what they're thinking of, but some of those sections, I mean, we spent, I think, about 240 miles in Pennsylvania. A good 100 of that is, and it sounds ridiculous, that 100 miles of footpath is just plain vicious on your feet. You know, whatever about, you know, this stuff, you know, it was like walking on the tips of knives, you know, through some parts of Pennsylvania. And I guess Pennsylvania is relatively flat. They don't have any big, you know, 5,000 foot mountains for us to go up. They've one or two big climbs, but nothing like Georgia and North Carolina. So the one characteristic that does catch us is the actual surface you're walking on. And that kind of idea that they, you know, the next two states, so New Jersey and New York, they're certainly hard on your feet. Not as hard as Pennsylvania, but still tough. And when you do get a climb here, like this morning, was it this morning? There was one yesterday and one this morning where even though the climb isn't high, it might only be 500 to 1,000 feet of climb. It's really steep. I mean, it's hands and feet. You're hand over hand climbing. Whereas in the early, you know, the first few 100 miles where you were doing big climbs, they were graded out. So you were slogging uphill. Whereas here, they make the most of their climbs and they don't bother grading them out. They just send you straight up them. I mean, this here behind me, so that's horizontal, and the trail goes up onto this. And I've just come down it back here. So you're going up and down these boulder fields, and sometimes it's a proper, okay, when I say rock face, I'll never say that I'm rock climbing, but in fairness, in one or two places we sort of have. It's been a proper hand-in-hand climb. But yeah, the character of each state is different, and I guess they're using what they have to get us and catch us and make it difficult for us. So the other thing about New York is there's no hostels, very few accommodation options, very few campsites, so it's kind of difficult. It makes life awkward. So there you go. So yeah, thanks David. There was something else he asked. What was it? There was a rocks. Oh, I'll think of it later and I'll answer it. Okay, catch you all later. Okay, I just thought of David's other comment, and there's another question I'll deal with as well. So David was just sounded a little alarmed at my bear encounter the other day, and asked about have I seen any tagged bears, etc. I haven't actually seen a tag on a bear. I don't know what form they take. I've heard that they take a little piece of tissue from their ear, so they can genetically test the bear and keep an eye on it or whatever. But a couple of shelters ago, I mentioned the fingerboard shelter where there were bear problems. So there they trapped 3 bears over the space of about a week, and they anesthetized, took the tissue samples, and they tagged those 3 bears. So those bears are at least on strike 1. And as I explained before, assuming they didn't already have a tag, which would mean they're now on strike 2. So the next time, if you're on strike 2 and you get too near people again, or steal food bags, or bluff charge, or do all those crazy things, you're basically dead. So not that the bears really understand that, but so the strike 1 bears have, I was going to say 2 more chances. They've really only 1 more chance, because if they bother people again, they will be identified because they have the tags as these are now second strike bears. And then the next time, if they bother people, they're actually put down. So you'd be kind of hopeful. I mean, they're nice creatures. It's amazing to see such huge creatures in the wild, even though for a few minutes I felt differently about them when I got bluff charged. I would have happily seen them all executed. So yeah, so I hopefully that answers what you're asking. I haven't physically seen a tag, but I know they do fit them. Actually, since my experience, there's another hiker that I've been hiking sort of parallel to. His name is Butter, a youngish guy, and I heard he and one other guy were bluff charged a day or 2 ago. So hopefully they're okay about that. And actually, on that point about that experience I had, again, the best possible thing happened the next day, because I was walking, it was actually the day I was walking into Delaware Water Gap, and very unusually for me, I was walking with another guy, brilliant guy actually, a guy called Paradise, and up the trail, I did video it, you might have noticed it in the last video, we saw this big dark shape on the trail. We were walking along like a 4x4 track, and as we got closer we realized it was a bear. So hang on, yeah, so when we realized it was a bear, which was actually asleep on the actual trail, we just the Paradise, who was obviously much more used to the bears than me, he lives out west and works in the outdoors, and he wasn't bothered by it at all. Now if I had been on my own, I would have just waited until someone else came along and then moved forward with somebody else, but with him it was fine. He didn't shout at the bear as such, he just spoke to it as if he was giving an instruction to like a dog. And the bear just sort of got up and lazily walked ahead of us, and then just headed out to the left off the trail. kind of walked alongside us for a little bit and then headed off into the bush, and that was it, over and done with. And that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I was still sort of unnerved from the previous day's experience. The other question from Terry Darling. How are you, Terry? Thanks for keeping up with the videos and your comments. To everybody, I have to say, comments are a huge boost. It's great to get some contact from home, even if it's just to slag me or, or whatever. Just please keep them coming. I feel a little bit less alone when I get comments. So Terry asks, do I know how much weight I've now lost? Well, there's good news on that score, because about, where was I, 4 or 5 days ago, I can't remember where, but there was a weighing scales. Tell me, where was that? I can't remember. It was within the last week. There was a scale, so I just hopped on it. I was just wearing my shoes, socks, shorts and a t-shirt, and it read 167. So I left home at 187. So assuming I was wearing, say, 2 pounds of clothes, it puts me at 165. So if I'm 22 pounds down, that means I have stabilized over the last month or so. In fact, I've probably gained a pound or two, because I had lost at least 23 pounds a month or so ago. So I have been eating more and eating better and eating higher calorie food, and I can stuff it in me a lot better than I could in the earlier month or two. But yeah, thanks for the question. So right now I'm so if I was standing naked, which I don't want you to think too much about, but I would be about 165. So that's 11 stone 11, which is okay. I expect to put a bit back on when I get home, and to do some workouts on my upper body, which has just sort of vanished. Not that it was big anyway, but it's kind of vanished. But I like the idea of the lower body fat, so I'll be trying to just control that and not balloon out. I think I'll be okay on that score, because, you know, I do make myself eat here. It's not like I'm ravenous and I'm craving tons of food. I'm not. I'm kind of consciously forcing myself to eat. So I hope when I get home that it'll still be like that, and I'll be able to just eat what I need to eat, and not pile the weight back on, which is very common with post through hikes, and men pile weight back on. So I don't want that to happen. Thanks for the question. Catch you later. Good morning, Ireland. It is Sunday, July 7th, which makes this day 106. And I just thought I'd stop at this nice place. This is called, believe it or not, Nuclear Lake. Apparently there was a radioactive substance test area here, and the lake quality is a little suspect. But there's mixed news out about that. But it is beautiful. And there's life in it. There's fish and geese and pondweed and all those things, so it certainly looks healthy. So yesterday morning was kind of difficult. The question I got from David about the soles of my feet being hurt from the rocks was very timely. So the evening before yesterday, the last hour or two, I thought I was getting a blister on the sole of my left foot, but I pushed on and got to that Canopus Lake, which is quite a nice area. And when I took my shoes and socks off, the sole of my left foot was actually all dappled red. It was all bruised. And in the morning, yesterday morning, I couldn't actually put my foot on the ground. And for a while I thought my race was run. So I sort of limped around the area that we were camping in to try and loosen it up, which kind of worked. And then because I had wrecked my shoes, I decided to just call an Uber cab, and got a lift out to the nearest town that had an outfitter store, which was a place called Beacon in New York State, about 15 miles away. So thankfully they had the shoes, exactly the shoes I need, and I also got a pair of Superfeet insoles, which has a bit of a rock plate in it just to protect the underside of my feet. And then I got another Uber back to the trail. So I then carefully, slowly continued up to a shelter about 13 point something miles from Canopus Lake, and my foot felt okay. You know, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. And this morning I'm at it again. I'm giving it just another fairly easy day. It's about, I think, a total of I think it's only about 8 or 9 trail miles, but about 10 miles to a town called Pauling in New York. So myself and a trail friend, a guy called K2, a New Zealand guy, we're just going to share a room in a place called the Station Inn. He needs to take a break with his feet as well. He's got terrible blisters between his toes that he's been working with for the last couple of weeks. And in reality, both of us shouldn't really be hurrying. You know, we sort of have deadlines, but they're very comfortable deadlines. So we're going to get laundry done, get some food. In my case, I need to get some resupply and then get back on the trail. It'll just be a sort of a Nero today, sort of a 10-mile Nero, and get back on the trail tomorrow. So that's that. But yeah, a bit concerned yesterday morning, but we got there. I got there. So I'm now on pair of shoes number 5, which is a little more than I thought. But the last, this state and the last 2 absolutely destroyed the soles of my my last pair, so needed to be done. So there you go. Hope you're all doing well. Talk to you soon. Just look at the size of this oak tree. It's huge. That trunk must be, I don't know, it's at least 8 feet across, 8 or 9 feet across. Go closer. Coolio. Maine is that way. And George is that way. They're very nice. Cool. This is the Swamp River area in New York. You enjoying the trail?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. This morning's been like, I think I'm just kind of tired.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What I find is you get certain days where your body's ability to convert food to energy and get it to your muscles isn't quite as fast as you're burning it up. You slowly deplete all your glycogen, and then I always get a day where I feel great, I feel fit, but there's no fuel there.
Yeah.
You know. So I try to spend an evening where I'm just stuffing empty calories into me and eating any energy gel type thing, any instant energy type stuff that I can get my hands on. Kind of works.
Yeah.
But then you're probably half my age, but might be different for you.
Yeah.
Good morning, Ireland. It is Monday, July 8th. That makes this day 107. So everything's tickety-boo. My feet feel a lot better this morning. The new shoes and the new rock plate insoles are working wonders. Kind of kicking myself I didn't have one of those insoles in 3 weeks ago. It would have helped a lot. but I think my feet are getting back to normal fairly rapidly, which is good. So last night I walked into a town called Pauling in New York. A really nice little town, villagey kind of atmosphere. Stayed in a really nice place called the Station Inn. I guess maybe it used to be the railway station. Well, there's actually a railway that goes right by the front of it, and right through the middle of the town. It's one of these automatic places, so when you make the reservation, they issue you with an access code for the front door and another access code for your room. So there's no sort of, there are no employees there or anything like that. But a beautiful building. It's been restored. It's only open a couple of years. Anyone that's ever going into upstate New York, Pauling, lovely, and the Station Inn. Yeah, we were in like this converted attic space, myself and K2. K2, did I mention K2 before? He's the New Zealand guy, Phil. And we shared the room, two double beds, very, very nice, all very elegant and boutique. Probably definitely the most elegant place I've stayed in so far, except for where I stayed with Emily, of course. And with taxes, $110 just for the room. But there's plenty of coffee and water and stuff, but it's not a B&B as such. So I'm not going to talk while I go up this bit, I'll be out of breath. But yeah, nice town. So got a laundry done, got some good food, got cleaned up, a couple of showers, good night's sleep, got a video up, which is a couple of days late. I managed to, they had good Wi-Fi, so I managed to get some files up out of my way up into Dropbox, which is very handy. So today I'm on my way to a campsite with Phil, can't remember its name, Straughty Coke or something like that. It's a weird name. And it's only going to be, for him, he actually headed into Pauling from a different road junction, an earlier one. So for him it was 16, 17 miles. For me it's more like 14. So not a difficult day. But between us last night we formulated a new plan, because we both have some restrictions on how much time we have in terms of visas and other things that we've got to do, like me getting to Canada, him getting back to his wife. His wife was originally hiking with him, but she basically gave up a few weeks ago, and he then upped his speed to try and make a sort of a push for Katahdin. So he wants to get his average requirement down to 13 miles or less. So if we target a town called Bennington in Vermont for my last day of hiking before I go to Canada, that puts him exactly where he needs to be. He will be at that, I now need 13 miles a day from here on point. And it puts me probably about 40 miles ahead of the car hire place. So when I come back from Canada, I'll have sort of miles in the bank, so I don't have to rush up to Katahdin. I can take the odd day off. So that'll be good. So we're going to do that. It means that we're going to do 9 days out of the 10, averaging 18.3 miles, and 1 day off, which will be in about 4 days' time. So very doable. K2 likes to hike long days, so he gets going very early in the morning. I hike slightly faster, but so therefore I need less time to do it. So yeah, 18 is fine. So there you go. Hope you're all well. Talk to you soon. Another one of these nice little places I'm stumbling across. Oh, nice. Lovely river. Hmm. It's a 10-mile river. Weird name, but that's what it's called. This is kind of cool. One of those old American style bridges. I never understood why they enclosed them like this. Bulls Bridge, Kent, Connecticut. I'm in Connecticut. Didn't see a border crossing. Ooh, look at this now. Actually, I wonder, am I supposed to walk through here? Probably a pedestrian bridge separate to this. However, I didn't see it. Right, there you go. Good morning, Ireland. It is Tuesday, July the 9th. That makes this day 108. I'm in Connecticut. I'm on a lovely little piece of trail. I've just stepped onto it. I think it runs for a mile or so. And it runs alongside this river, which I believe is the Bull River. Looks very nice. Seen a couple of guys out fly fishing. That would be a very pleasant way to spend a day. So, everything's going great. I am currently at mile something like 1476. So I'm comfortably ahead of target. Looking forward to my week off, where I'll drive up to Toronto and see Emily and Rachel and Rebecca. And some other family members, actually. So really looking forward to that. Should have good fun up there. So had a very good question from Helen. Hi, Helen. About hunting and hunting seasons and restrictions, etc. when she saw the wild turkeys in my previous videos. So quite timely, actually, because I've been sort of hiking parallel to a guy called Tex, who that's a very unimaginative name for him because he's from Texas. He's a very nice guy. He's a youngish guy, I'd say early 30s, I'd imagine. And he gave up his desk job. He used to be a salesman for BP. And before that, he was a teacher. He used to teach agricultural science. And now he's actually working as a professional huntsman and land manager for some of his old school buddies in West Texas who own something like 100,000 acres of land. And it has too many wild pigs on it. So he came up with an idea to sort of turn it into a kind of a touristy thing. So people pay him to guide them onto the land. They do it at night using night vision scopes, and they basically hunt the pigs, and they all love it, and it does service to the land. So last night I asked him, he was camping in the shelter area where I was, and I just asked him about the hunting restrictions around here. So apparently turkey season runs something like 60 days from March to May. This isn't his territory, so he doesn't know the precise dates, but to the best of his knowledge it's March to May. Deer season is in the autumn. He made a couple of very good points about deer season, that some people and some states have made the mistake of sort of banning hunting, thinking they're too beautiful a creature. But the problem is, and he demonstrated it by telling me about one particular year in one state where there were so many deer and they had a really bad rainfall summer, limited vegetation on the ground, and there was something like a 99% die-off of the deer because they just couldn't get enough food. Whereas previously their numbers would have been limited by issuing licenses to the hunters to allow them to take a deer or two each per season. And then when the times are lean, they still have enough each, if you know what I mean, to stay alive and survive rough seasons like that. But if you have too many, they can effectively you can end up with a situation where they all die. So that's deer season. They also have a bear season. Apparently the only state that doesn't hunt bears is New Jersey. And New Jersey it has a very high concentration of bears. Funny enough, I didn't see any in New Jersey, but its bear population is very, very high compared to other states. So I think that will be addressed. And I think they've got to the stage now where they have to send out, like, they have to pay people to go out and actually cull the bears, whereas other states can actually generate an income from the hunters who go out to hunt the bears. So on the bear issue, he made a very good point there as well. That sometimes this stuff sounds a bit hard to hear, and it's in Ireland, well, I suppose in a lot of countries we look at these animals as cute and cuddly and whatever. But he was explaining that the best way to hunt deer and to hunt bears, and to make sure that you're killing the correct bears, because each season the hunters will be told, you've got to kill, 2 old males and 3 females, depending on the count that they will have made on the land over the previous few months. So he said, if you hunt with dogs, which sounds barbaric, but the dogs don't really catch the bears, they just chase the bears, and the bears end up climbing trees to get away from the dogs. And then the dogs will obviously circle the tree. You come along with your gun, you can then inspect that bear, and if it turns out to be a young bear, you'll leave it alone and you move on to something else. Or if you can see that it's an old male and that fits the characteristic of what it is that they're trying to reduce the numbers of, then you can choose at that point to shoot it. So it helps, from a land management point of view, it helps target the right animal. So there you go. Yes, there are seasons for different animals in different states. And there you go. It's pretty much probably like home. And obviously there's a waterfowl season as well, which is, I believe, through the winter. I think he said it was through the winter. So there you go. Thanks for the question. Talk to you all soon. Bye. Just thought of another point about the hunting. With regard to the Appalachian Trail, hunters are not allowed to hunt within 100 yards either side of the trail, and they're also not allowed to shoot across the trail, thankfully. So there's various notices around that if you are hiking in one of the hunting seasons, one of the areas where there's active hunters, they tell you that you should wear, they say orange, but basically a high-vis shirt. It's what the hunters wear, so they tell you to do the same, so hunters can see that you're human and not a bear, basically. We're all doomed if the bears start wearing high-vis bibs. They won't be able to distinguish us from them. Just a thought, you got to think of these things. All right, catch you later. Goodbye. This looks remarkably like the river that Roy and I kayaked down. Similar kind of size. It's not as, I don't think it's quite as deep. Well, I suppose it varied. But certainly when you have the little steps in the river like over there, and it forms these little minor rapids. They look, well, that's a particularly gentle one. It looks kind of familiar. Okay, it's getting ridiculous now. The trail comes up here, and then goes up there. I think my pack will fit this time. Just about see there's a bear up there. Just walked by it. Pretty large, but it moved in my favourite direction, which is away from me. Don't know whether you saw that. This is another stretch of the Housatonic River. Looks kind of cool back there. What do you think, Roy? Would we have made it over that? I don't think we did anything quite that bad. This, yeah, no problem. Did lots of this, but none of that. There you go. Welcome to Amesville. Okay, the letters are really faded, but it says this monument marks the highest ground in Connecticut, 2354 feet above the sea. Built AD 1885. Owen, I think it's Owen Travis Mason. That's a monument in its loosest sense, I think. Good morning, Ireland. It is Thursday, July the 11th. That makes this day 110. I am in Connecticut still. I think I'll cross out of Connecticut real soon. And I'm on this crazy steep ascent. So I'm just stopping for a breather. Thought I'd say hi. Don't think I have anything more to report than that. Stayed at a campsite near a shelter called Brassy Brook last night. It was okay, it was nice and quiet. Caught up with my friend K2. He headed off again this morning before 6. So he's probably well on his way to Great Barrington, which is where we're going to take a zero. So we're sharing a motel room for a couple of nights. Which would be great. Looking forward to having a couple of drinks, getting some good food in, getting a rest, and then we hit the trail again on Saturday. Yeah, then I've only a few days before I get to Toronto. Okay, that's it. Talk to you soon. Well, if I had known climbing Mount Everett was as easy as that. Now, if I'd have known that climbing Mount Everett was as easy as that, I'd have done it years ago. What's all the fuss about? Phew, it's easy. Wow, I didn't even know it was on the AT. Actually, that was a really tough climb. A whopping 2,602 feet.